Crescent Ciel is a well-rounded Shoto-ish character, lacking glaring flaws but having only a handful of standout strengths in return. Her defense rating is in the upper third of the cast, and she has solid defensive tools to boot. Although she is still slower than more purebred, high-mobility characters like Bakia, Xion, etc., she has a quick, low-profile dash as well as a fast forward air dash that covers ground very quickly, and one of the best walk speeds in the game. She has unusually fast jabs, solid mid-range pokes, and her black key projectiles allow her to quickly put hitboxes all across the screen, meaning she is never a sitting duck no matter what distance she is from the opponent. Up close, her pressure is unfortunately rather limited for Melty Blood standards, and her mix-up / Okizeme game equally so, but the few solid hits that she can get in against experienced players count, as she has a very good damage output. Crescent Ciel stocks meter very quickly, and when she has meter to spend, she transforms from an okay-ish Shoto to a giant pain for your opponent to have to deal with. In neutral, her punch game becomes the best in the game, as the opponent must always be scared of her 236C / Hyro super, a very fast full involve full screen super, which can punish anything that the Ciel player can react to for high damage and a knockdown. Her damage output also shoots through the roof, as her J623C adds about 800 to 1000 damage to any corner combo no matter what, and she can opt to end combos anywhere on screen in EX Halo for air combo damage while also getting solid Okizeme. She gains a number of metered reversals that allow her to slip out of an above average variety of defensive situations depending on which you use. Crescent Ciel is for you if you want a scary neutral game that regularly demands your opponent's respect. You like having a variety of solid defensive options available to you. You want an easier character that will help you learn the mechanics of the game. You like using lots of meter at all times and having many things to use it on. You don't mind having to work around a below average offensive game, or if you dream of becoming a vampire slaying ninja. Let's talk about Ciel's normals now. 5A. It's 5 frame startup. It's 1 frame slower than 2A, but 1 frame usually doesn't matter all that much, so don't worry about it. Has better horizontal and vertical range than 2A, so it's overall better if you just need an option to run up and hit a button with, like this. The vertical hitbox is enough to catch jump outs sometimes, which you would confirm with that or something like that. But as an anti-air, a normal anti-air to beat an air approach that's already happening, it is not very good at all because it has a very bad angle for that purpose, and the hitbox is too mediocre for it to have much priority against much of anything. You can occasionally stop really greedy instant air dashes towards you with it, but you usually get counter hit for your trouble if you try and anti-air with it, so I would recommend against using it for that purpose. It's your normal of choice if you EX shield an attack of any sort. Anti-air EX shield will just counter hit them out of their recovery, and you can pick up a full air combo afterwards. A grounded one, it's good for that too, because it's just fast and you have so many options after it, and it has more range than 2A. It has a 16 frame total animation on it, which is the same as 2A, but you usually, if you have a choice for whatever reason, you would pick 2A for rebeating, because it has less range, so it's more likely to whiff on rebeat, which is usually what you want. 2A is 4 frame startup. It's a low. It is -1 on block. It's overall very good, almost full moon tier good when it's a sea moon jab. So it's just a very useful tool for pressure. The biggest flaw to it is that it cannot hit airborne opponents by any means, no matter what. And the horizontal range is worse than 5A. So, if they just start jumping out in reaction to you trying to approach them from the ground or something, then you will never hit them with this. 16 frame total animation, less horizontal range than 5A. It's the best rebeat option you have, but which rebeat option you use usually depends on which jab you use to start your pressure with, and that just depends on the situation, so you just use whichever one is available to you. It's just the optimal one if you have a choice for whatever reason. Since it is low and you have all of your pressure options after it and it does not knock down, unlike your other low options, it is your easiest low to use for mix-up, but there's a lot of situations where you have to use the other ones instead, so be careful. 5B, this move is kind of awkward. 6 frame startup, which is rather crazy for how much horizontal range it has, and it's a low that must be shielded high since it's done standing. You can catch people sometimes that try and jump away from 2A just by cutting your dash short and doing this, since it will like catch them out of jump startup from a distance, and you can like pick up a combo with something like that. It's awkward to use in pressure at first glance since it trips on hit, and that makes it very hard to confirm off of it on hit. But what you can do is, if you're certain it will be blocked, it's not 2- if you just let it recover, and you can enforce it using like delayed cancel into 5C or something. So if you use it just sparingly, you can like force them to respect resetting pressure using just 5B recover. It is your most viable option for crushing low shields, since your only other options are 5C and 4C, which are slower and you have less options after they are blocked. It is also your low of choice if 2A just doesn't have the range to cut it in whatever situation you're in. Just be careful with confirming or stunning pressure afterwards. 2B. It's 2 hits. The first hit comes out in 8 frames, but it has very low horizontal range. It does not hit low, unfortunately. It's enticing to use it as a pressure option because it pulls Ciel really close to them on block. Especially if you just immediately cancel it into something else, but what can happen is if you use it as at a medium range and you aren't absolutely certain of the spacing on it, then you will just get this really strange one-hit 2B instead, and it will screw up the timing for your cancel into another normal, and you'll just let it recover, and just look at how bad this is on recover. They will pretty much always punish that if that happens, so that's you will just cry yourself to sleep if that happens. Just don't let it. Since the frame advantage is bad on block, it's more of just an intermediary move, just to pull you a bit closer for your real pressure options if they're blocking it. But it is good for like punishing like whiffed things that have a lot of recovery, like a DP or something. If you can just run in and get both hits of 2B, you get a lot of damage off of just doing simple combos. It's like 4.5k against a character with a good defense value. It's pretty crazy. It does have an anti-air hitbox, like late in the move, but that doesn't come out for a while. So it's kind of awkward for that purpose. Like they've usually already like jumped out of its effective range just because it's so slow. If you try and use it for something like that, and it moves you forward, so that sometimes messes up with trying to do that. Like it just sometimes catches people by chance if you're like autopiloting 2A 2B to start pressure. So that's the only time you'll ever see that happen. Like it's awkward to get a combo off that if it hits anti-air anyways, so don't rely on it. It does have some clash on the fist during the anti-air part, but you have a move that's better for clashing anyways, so I guess if it happens, it happens. Don't like try and go for it or anything, I would say. 5C, this move is really, really good. It's 7 frame startup if you do not charge it at all. It's the best range of any of your normals at all. There is no hurt box on the entire sword. If you rebeat to 2A or 5A, then it's +2 on block. So it's just overall a really, really good poking tool. It does like trip them like 5B if it hits crouching opponents, but it's usually used near the end of pressure anyway, so it doesn't like affect as much as with 5B, I guess. It's used for combos like that. you will pretty much always go into 5cc like that. 5C can be charged for up to 24 frame startup. It's not a super useful charge since all it does is move you forward more than 5C does, and it increases guard bar damage. It doesn't change frame advantage if you rebeat or anything. It's really just a frame track tool. 2C. This move is kind of meh. It's 8 frame startup, and it's a low that hits very far for the standards of lows in this game. You do not want to use this on its own, like, pretty much ever. Like, just look at how awful this recovery is. Like, you're just screwed if this does not connect, or if you just don't cancel it and it does connect. Like, you almost certainly give up initiative if this happens. In pressure, it is actually useful though, because if you rebeat it, it's also +2, like 5C, but it leaves you closer to them than 5C does if you do it like that. So it's good for resetting pressure. On grounded or air hit, no matter what, it will always knock them down. It's a hard knockdown. It's really good for Oki. You would just end combos with something like that, or like this, and that gives you very solid Okizeme. You can occasionally anti-air with it since it low profiles, especially if you combine it with her already really low profile dash. You can like run under some air approaches in 2C, and it will autocorrect and like hit their recovery or something, and you get a full combo, but it's really situational. It's only very specific circumstances where that's a good option. 4B, her first command normal. 7 frames if you don't chart it at all. 0 Gatling options whatsoever on hit or block. You can only special cancel to continue your initiative after you use this move. If it hits, you can do 2 through 6B for this follow-up. It gives you very strong Okizeme. It's really the only reason you'll be using this move much, if ever. If they actually just block the move, you're just pushed really far out, and your frame advantage is too bad for you to do much of anything afterwards. So don't use it except in combos is my recommendation. If you charge it, it's 26 frames. It's an overhead. Gives you very little reward. There is no mix-up. They just have to stand block as soon as they see Seal raise her leg, and they'll just end your pressure. It's very slow. It's very obvious. It does very little damage, even if you do connect with it for how much risk it is. It's a bad overhead. Use it sometimes, if ever, really. 3B. It's kind of like 2B, except the range is much more reliable. You're in a much better position if you let it recover. The frame disadvantage is much better than 2B. But the real draw to the move, and makes it worth using it for pressure, is that Seal just sort of hops forward at the end of the recovery animation. So if they respect, you can walk forward and throw after they block it. Or if you want, you can just immediately 2A, and that connects. And if you don't think they will respect that, which they probably won't at first, you can do a super late delay cancel into like 5C or something, and that forces them to respect it. It's a very good tool for pressure. You can like set up re-pressure throws fairly consistently with it. It's good for hit confirming too, because it's 2 rather slow hits that have a lot of range, and it's very unlikely to fail if you use it in the middle of an already started string. There's no real uses for neutral because the first hit is 11 frames, and you're very vulnerable if it whips. So it's really just a pressure tool. Her last command normal is 4C. It looks better than it is, to be honest. It's 10 frame startup, but the full anti-air hitbox takes another 2-ish frames to fully come out. So it's kind of slow to start up for its uses as an anti-air. If you do have time to let the startup run its course, the hitbox is amazing, and there's flash all over the knife. so it's a very, very hard to deal with anti-air if you do have time to use it. However, if they double jump, the recovery is bad enough that they can just like go over it or avoid it somehow, and they just take the initiative because the recovery is just too long. So you have to be really, really careful with how you use it, but if you are, it is very effective as an anti-air. 2 hits if it hits a grounded or low height opponent, but only 1 hit if they are coming from a rather higher angle. So you have to be really on point to confirm with it. Usually just jump cancel JA. But sometimes it's just too high and all you can do is high row after it. So, meh. It's super useful for anti-jump strings during your pressure. Just run in 5A, 4C. That will pretty much always catch them jumping out. And you can easily confirm into an air combo after that. If they just round block that string, you can just like 2A rebeat or something, and you continue your momentum, which is really nice. Or you can just like delay 5C or something again. 5C is very good for pressure, is what I'm trying to say. You can only cancel the second hit into anything, which is kind of awkward to get used to if you're using it in really weird situations, I guess. Aside from just having a series of command normals, certain normals have follow-ups if you press the same input again. 2B has one. It's kind of gimmicky, to be honest. Like, the draw to it is, although it's rather slow, it leaves Ciel in the air, and you can special cancel it afterwards. So you can do, like, that. And that gives you some frame advantage and corner push, but the situation you're in when it's blocked isn't super great. You might just barely have enough space to like 5A immediately afterwards, but there's better things you can be doing than that if you want to reset pressure. If you want a mix-up option, you can just dive throw. It's okay, it's a bit slow, but if they're just going to sit down and block, you might as well. It's not too bad. However, the fatal flaw with this follow-up is that this is very telegraphed, and there is always going to be a gap before you do the special cancel no matter what. Like, no matter what special you do. So there is no efficient way to bait reversals if you do this move, and since it's telegraphed, they can just always react in reversal if they're looking for it. Like, just letting it recover has no purpose. Like, that's terrible recovery, and even just like whiffing J214A improves their recovery, even though that has bad landing recovery. Just to give you an idea of how bad this move is if you just let it play out. So never do that. Like, you can maybe use it sometimes against people with bad reversal options, or if they just really aren't expecting it at all, but the reward isn't even that great if you do manage to do that, so I'd stay away from this move for the most part. Really don't see it much in good matches, if like at all, really. 5cc. This move, however, is very good. It's a projectile, so it does not move Ciel herself, only the opponent. The pushback is bad, just on the opponent moving back themselves, but if they're in the corner, there is no pushback whatsoever. So you just end up very close to the opponent afterwards, and the frame advantage on the projectile she throws is like incredible. At minimum possible distance, it is neutral on block, and it only gets significantly better if you're at a distance. That is very good for being able to run in and like jab afterwards. It is one of the staples of her corner pressure, and one of the reasons you want to get the opponent to the corner as soon as possible and keep them there. 5cc also has special cancel immediately after she throws the key, even if you're not even like pressuring them and they're just completely neutral during it. So what you can do is like delay a chain into flash kick and anti-air, an air approach that tries to like hop over the key. Or if you're at a long distance, you can just throw a second key or something to further press your advantage, or like frame trap them or something. It's one of your primary combo tools in this moon, and you should like use it in every combo if you can. Just improves your damage a lot. And her final like follow-up thing is 2CC. It's also very gimmicky. If they block 2C, it will pretty much never hit. It will just whiff like that and you're screwed. So you have to use it on Oki for it to do anything useful. If you do this, you can cancel it into JC with a very specific window to do so, and you get an air dash mix-up off of that, which I will explain in the Okizeme section. Like, it's not a great mix-up, but it's something you can do off of throw, and your options on Oki after throw are kind of limited, so might as well use it sometimes. On hit, it does connect more easily, launches them extremely high, and you can do a super jump cancel, but you will never be doing that because it is always unoptimal for combos, so might as well forget that even exists. Oh well. JA. It's your fastest air normal, 5 frames. The hitbox is as bad as the animation makes it look, unfortunately. It is the only air attack you have that hits like upwards, aside from flash kicks, so it is good for that. Like, you can intercept air approaches if you do them early. Like, if they like jump at you, you can just immediately do this and maybe counter hit them or something. Just don't expect miracles from this hitbox. Like, it has its uses, but it's only really good for those uses. Like, it won't protect you from anything if they aren't coming from this exact angle, basically. It's used to pick up certain combos that are kind of awkward and will be discussed in the combo section. JB. This move, however, is really good. Has lots of horizontal range. Lots of active frames, so you can just like fall on people with it. Has a cross-up hitbox, because why the hell not? So you can defend yourself from behind or set up weird mix-ups using it. Or just generate really strange pressure situations just using the cross-up hitbox. It's an amazing air-to-air since it covers such a good range directly in front of Ciel. The only flaws are that it's a bad air to ground because it has very low hit stun against guarded opponents, and the hitbox doesn't go down at all. So you have to be like very close to hitting the ground to even connect with it against like crouching opponents, as you can see. JC. This move is also kind of mediocre. It looks better than it is, and it doesn't even look that great, to be honest. Like, you can see it's easily whiffing, even though it's just going straight through Ciel's head. The hitbox and active frames leave a lot to be desired. It's only really good because it's your only move that hits conveniently at an air-to-ground angle. So if you instant air dash at somebody, this is the move you want to use, I guess. It's good for mix-ups and like combos because it has much more hit stun on guarded opponents than JB. Like, that combos reliably, but JB into B-dive will sometimes just drop. Like there, that didn't combo. But JC always combos into B-dive, which is important. J2C, it's your only air command normal. It's this very strange looking dive kick. It's not super good for neutral, like dive kicks like Nania's are, because the angle is just too steep and the landing recovery is kind of mediocre. And not to mention it has 14 frame startup, no matter like how little you charge it. So it's not super suited for neutral. However, if you use it on like Oki, or if you're pressuring them and already close to them or something, it's actually fairly useful. It's always frame advantage unless they block it standing and you hit them square in the top of the head or something. that's pretty solid frame advantage. They can't really do anything after it if you, like, 5B straight after it or something. You can pick up a combo with 2A if you're close after it hits, and you hit with it low enough. So the idea is that on Oki, or if you just have them respecting your pressure, you can just like get right on top of their head and use this, and it's hard for them to do much about it. If they're like trying to shield like your air approaches or like your jump ins or something, you can like use the charge to like do a delayed air approach that like screws with their shield time and maybe counter hit them. The charge changes the startup to 26 frames total. It makes the move an overhead, it gives it better frame advantage, it gives it special cancel. The better frame advantage is the only one of those that's really useful though. Like, if they're looking for it, they will always block this. It's not a fast overhead at all. In the special cancel, there's not too much that's useful to cancel it into, since the dive kick on its own is already pretty good frame advantage, so usually just use the charge more for mind games, I guess. If you do it immediately after jumping, it won't hit, so if they're used to you using like this for Okizeme, you can like do that, or you can do the full charge version and then just land low if you're a douchebag. It's pretty nice. Sounds a bit gimmicky, but it works more often than you would think. Like, they can't really disrespect if you do the version that actually makes the dive kick hit, so you might as well go for it sometimes, even if it's a silly option. Okay, let's talk about Ciel's special moves now. Right off the bat, we start with this thing. Unfortunately, it has to be pretty much her worst special. My best advice for using this move is to not use it. The startup is incredibly slow. You are in counter hit state the entire time until you land from whatever you choose to do after you even connect with the wall, if you connect with it at all without getting counter hit. The follow-ups you get after you do the jump aren't great, and 236B lets you get all the useful ones much more quickly. You can do like this series of knife throws. It's not very good because the angle is kind of bad. You can hit 236A again to go to the other wall, and that's really good for trolling the opponent. Don't use this move. 236B, you should just use this instead. It just immediately puts you into the flip state that you would get if you do the A follow-up to the wall cling. So it's all the useful options you need right there. It's 13 frames startup before she starts going into the air, but you can act out of it immediately afterwards. Just the sort of weird command jump that you can influence in the air with left and right after you start jumping. You're in counter hit state the entire time until you finish landing recovery, but there's decently safe options you can use to get out of it, so it's not too bad, especially since you have such good horizontal control after it. It has a charge for whatever reason. It's horrendously slow at 30 frames for what it does, but it makes you go slightly higher, and it doubles your horizontal speed when you influence it. Not too much reason to use that charge. If you do not cancel it into anything and you just land, there is this landing recovery for some stupid reason. If you don't want to use anything, just whiff the C follow-up, because it has less landing recovery, because French bread is good at designing fighting games. The A follow-up, it's the same fast fall as if you just use J236A from neutral. It's a really meh option. It's kind of slow, the angle isn't great. If you really wanted to just use this fast fall option, you just use it from neutral. There's landing recovery. It's not much to say about it. It's exactly the same as this move, which I'll cover in a bit. There's not much reason to use it after the flip. It's just the real problem with it. The B follow-up, however, you can also influence the angle that it hits at by like holding forwards or backwards. This is neutral. This is forwards, this is backwards. If it hits, you can cancel it into anything. Like normals, specials, like jump, anything. If it's blocked, however, you can still special cancel it, which is unique. It does, like you just saw, have a hitbox behind it, but it cannot hit airborne opponents, like at all, period. If they hold up, they will like always get out. So that's the huge damning flaw with this move, and why you should be very, very judicious with how you use it, I guess. It has a bit of frame advantage if you just let it recover on block, but you kind of pushed out. All you can really do is max range 5B, and it's obvious since the animation for having it blocked is long. It's not great. Don't use this move too much. The C follow-up. She literally just air throws. However, it can air throw grounded opponents, which is pretty silly. Like, letting the flip ride long enough for it to become a factor that can possibly hit grounded opponents leaves you with too much of a gap for them to disrespect for it to accomplish much. However, if they go into the air after you and they aren't careful with their spacing, you can actually definitely feasibly catch them with this. It's just an air throw, so your options after it don't do too much damage, but it does give you a knockdown, I guess. It's not super worth going for, but if you want to do a different option and you feel the need to defend yourself from some sort of response instead, you can sometimes use it. It's not something you should go for like as a mix-up, for sure. It cannot connect during combos, unlike your air throw, so that's all it's good for. It's the same hitbox as her air throw, so it's a generous hitbox, but all they have to do is just use a decently long distance air normal, and they can like always counter hit you for trying to use it, so it's not great. And it's the only option you have to defend yourself in midair, or catch an airborne opponent, period, if you do the flip, so it's kind of why the flip sucks for the most part. The most useful follow-up is 214X after the flip. Throws 3 keys. It gives you decent frame advantage if they block it. It leaves them to air attack if they get hit. It covers a good angle that none of your other keys cover fairly quickly for what it does. Like, that's pretty good horizontal range, and it covers like the entire ground in front of you practically. And it also moves Ciel backwards when she throws them, and there's not much landing recovery. So it's probably your best option after flip. If you just like flip because you're trying to do something else and you just like think of the wrong input, or you just blatantly have an execution error, you can just quickly cancel into that to usually save yourself from giving up too much initiative. Trying to confirm off of an actual hit is just too awkward to go for. Usually all you can do is high row afterwards. Usually if you get a counter hit with it too. 236C. This is the attack. This is the attack that everyone remembers about this character. This attack is also one of the main backbones of the character. It's completely ridiculous for a super. The Sarb after the super flash is like really, really fast. They don't have much time to do anything after they react to the super flash, and if they're already committed to something, they don't have time to recover, which is really strong. You're full invulnerable from frame 1 as soon as you input it, so it's a reversal. I'm not sure why, but it is. They felt the need to give it that too, on top of all the other good things about it. It knocks down if it hits. If it hits a grounded opponent, it gives you this really, really high launch that you can like pick up a combo after it, but any combo you do will be super prorated and not really worth going for, so just go into a knockdown like that or something. Or just let it knock them down. Don't even do a follow-up. You get good Oki if you do that. The damage it does alone is like 3k, so you're already getting pretty good damage even if you don't do anything after it. It hits completely full screen. There is no way to completely avoid it. Backdashes will be caught, spot dodges will be caught, air dodges will be caught, DPs will be caught. All you can do is block it or shield it. Those are your only real options to defend against it. And you can't really do either of those if you're committed to doing some attack, and Ciel either reacts to you committing to something, or she just feels like doing this move. Like, if she just feels like doing this move, you just have to hope you can block. It's really ridiculous. Like, since it gives you that knockdown, you can just press 236C whenever you want, and unless they block it, you just do a bunch of damage and you steal the initiative from them for no real effort. It's a kind of bullshit move. As a reversal, it's okay. You have like faster, more reliable ones that are like better on block and more reliable to hit and faster, but it gives you the most reward of any reversal option. It is your only reversal that knocks down and gives you the initiative after it hits, and it does the most damage of any of them. So it's worth going for sometimes if you're like really certain it will hit. It's also a really good combo ender. Like, if you're just not sure how to pick up a combo, like if you get a really awkward confirm, you can just like cancel straight into it and it gives you knockdown and some damage and you're on your way. Or if you want Oki, you can like do this ender and it gives you enough time to do whatever mix-ups you want while also giving you good damage. It's just an amazing move that you should be using as much as you can whenever you can. It's just good at most things. The only flaw is that if it's blocked, you're dead. Just look at all the time they have to do whatever punish they want. It's crazy. It's minus you don't want to know on block. Just be careful with it, but use it whenever you think you can. It's my advice. Anyways, enough about that move. 214, EA version. It's a projectile. Like, if they have something low profile, they can go under it, but otherwise the angle is fairly decent. It scratches reliably and all that. Unless you use it from, like, within ranges you could be using 5C anyways, it will leave you at frame advantage, like that. At a greater distance, it's even more noticeable. That's a lot of frame advantage off a projectile for a projectile of that speed. It knocks them down. Well, it launches them for them to air attack if it hits them with that counter hit, and it gives you a soft knockdown if it counter hits, which is really good for how fast and non-committal the projectile is. Even without counter hit, you can still get a combo using Hyro, which is really, really strong. It's kind of crazy that you get like essentially a weak combo into a solid knockdown off of projectiles when most characters don't get anything besides like pushback and maybe a weak knockdown from a large distance if they succeed in using the projectiles. It's one of the things that makes her neutral game so strong. If it does counter hit them though, and you're at a medium distance, you can just barely run up and hit them. Something like that. Or if you're too far away, you can just run up and chase their tech with 2C. Has a charge. The charge is 30 frames-ish. It's very slow, very obvious. If they're looking for it, they'll see it every time, I mean. But what it does is it gives this cool explosion effect on hit that gives you lots of frame advantage to combo after. It disables their ability to burst out of your combo for the entire rest of your combo if it does hit. It catches spot dodges, because why not? As a projectile, it's the same as 214A in terms of properties, except you recover much faster, so you have a lot more frame advantage. Even if you use it from point blank, you should have a pretty decent chunk of frame advantage. Not that you would use it from this distance, but that's just to say the frame advantage is crazy, and at a more like reasonable distance to use it from, like here, it's huge. For combos, you can occasionally use it in corner pressure if you think they'll respect. Like, all of your projectiles, including this one, are air blockable, so it's not too hard to escape if they just see it coming, but it's an option worth going for sometimes if you think they'll respect it, just because you get such good reward for like not much of a commitment. 214B. It's a, like sort of projectile Rekka series, I guess. First hit looks like 214A, except it doesn't launch them like 214A, and it has a lot more recovery. Like if you throw this out and they predict and like try and take an air approach around it, you'll just give up the initiative. You can't defend yourself in much of any way, unlike with 214A, where you recover fast enough to maybe do something. So you should like pretty much always do one of the follow-ups after it. The A follow-up after this, 4A, you can just input all the follow-ups to the Rekkas by holding back and pressing the button you want. All of the Rekkas have incredibly long delay cancel windows. Like that. Crazy long. If you forget to let go of back and you try and like hit a normal after letting one recover, you'll probably just get the next Rekka instead, which is bad. So keep that in mind. The A follow-up to the initial one, this is the one you want to use pretty much all the time. Throws the key at a normal angle, but it throws a second one that's like above head height, which effectively catches them if they try and like do a single jump and like air dash at you or something. Like the only way around it is to like either neutral super jump or use a second air option just to get high enough to avoid it, which is really, really strong for your zoning. Like this move is one of the staples of Ciel zoning. Just the fact that it forces them to like use less useful air options just to try and take an air approach around it if they don't want to like block your projectiles all day is really strong, and it makes your 4C much more powerful since they have less options for avoiding it. It's like the main upside to using the 214B series, in my opinion. You don't really get a combo if the high key connects by any means. All you can really do is if you don't go into a third hit of the Rekka and the second one counter hits for some reason, you can maybe pick up a combo with 2C if you run up fast enough, but usually you just have to let them air attack at you. Like they don't get their options after they don't get their air options back after they air attack back at you, so it's not too bad. If you do B follow-up instead, it's pretty much the same as the A follow-up, except the second key is at a much lower angle. Both of the keys hit them if they're on the ground and they get hit by it. That's the only real upside. It does more damage, I guess. There's no real purpose to it for zoning that makes it better than the A follow-up. It's really just if you're certain the first hit of the Rekka will combo for some reason. Not too practical to go for. There is a series of third projectiles you can throw as well. The third A, super slow, like 30-ish frames startup, but it hits at an extremely high angle as well, just like the initial A follow-up. And although the frame advantage off this isn't great for how slow it is, the draw to it is that you can do a B follow-up afterwards, and the B follow-up is super fast and it gives you a ton of frame advantage on block, and it has tons of range, so they like can't avoid it. Like you just always have a lot of initiative. It's more noticeable if you do it from a distance, like you should be doing it. Like that's crazy. If they respect it, you pretty much can run in and still have time to do whatever the hell you want if they block it. Of course, since it's so slow, it's weak to shielding, and you can't really press your advantage if they do shield it, since they can just like special you out of whatever run up you try and do. So it's a bit of a gimmicky move, but especially if they don't like know to shield it, or they're just really not expecting it, you can sometimes just steal the initiative during neutral from extremely long distances using it. And even if you do go for it from a range, there's no real risk to it if you don't run in after it, so just use it sometimes. It's not super practical, but it's not worth it to just completely ignore it, is what I'm trying to say. If you do the B finisher instead, it does good damage and it does a soft knockdown on hit. It's bad at hitting people that are airborne. Like, if any of these connect against an airborne opponent at all, it probably will just go straight under them and they just air attack, which isn't great. But if your projectile Rekka hits a grounded opponent, it will pretty much always combo. And if it hits, you can go into Iroh for a knockdown. Which is, again, really, really good to be able to do off of a full screen projectile. Really crazy. It's really all it's for. The frame advantage is, once again, bad on block, and it has no real use outside of the things I've already described. It's really all it's for. 214C. This move is kind of weird. The slow backdash looking thing, it has full invul, and she retains full invul until she starts throwing the keys. Like, so it is a reversal, but the startup is rather slow for a reversal, is the main flaw. The draw to the move that most people remember it for is that since it pushes the opponent so far out, and Ciel makes distance from the opponent to begin with, it's pretty much always safe on block. So you have a metered reversal that is fairly reliable and is safe on block, which is kind of a crazy option that most characters don't have, so a lot of people don't know what to do about it. However, what you can do is, if you know it's coming, what can happen is you can just purposely get air hit by it, an air tech towards them, and then just JC counter hit them or something, and it's bad news bears if that happens. Don't let that happen. Because the startup is so slow, and it's definitely super punishable if that happens, it's more suited for reversaling out of pressure than on your wake up. When they're more likely to be committing to something slow that will be punished by it. So, it's really good, but a move you have to be really careful with. Kind of like Iroh in a way. If you cancel blocked 5C into it, it's airtight, or close enough to airtight, depending on which specific move you use. So you can block turn into something like this, and they just have to block this super long attack. So you can run out heat gauges or the timer if either of those are running low, and you just want to screw with them. It's sometimes useful for that. 623, the A version. A version isn't really useful for much of anything. It's fast, I guess, has a decent hitbox. You don't really get much off of it if it hits them, and it's bad on block. If you hold the button, it has slightly longer startup, moves you slightly forward more compared to the uncharged version, and it's twice, so I guess you can confirm more easily. It does have super cancel, but not super useful when there's not much of a reason to use the move in the first place, so not really much to say about this move. Not really sure if there's a use for it. However, the B version is fortunately more useful. You are in a better position if it is blocked, first of all, which is good. You won't get punished if they block it. It has slower startup, but it moves you further forward, and just generally has slightly more priority, so since it moves you so far forward and it has a pretty decent hitbox, it's a good final frame trap for your pressure. or just delay cancel straight into it. Unlike the A version, it launches on hit. Like, the A version just does that, but the B version just launches, and you can pick up a combo using JA, even if it does not counter it. And it also has an EX cancel that is much more reactable since it is slower and it hits 3 times. So, if you want a solid knockdown, you can just go straight into Hyro if you want. It also is an OTG relaunch that costs no meter. So, if you just really want a little more damage and you don't have time for an actual combo, I guess you can do that. It's not really super useful, but it's worth noting since meterless OTG relaunches are rather rare. EX version, really interesting move. Has a completely different animation. Ciel always moves the same distance forward every time, no matter where the opponent is relative to her. Frame disadvantage, but it's not punishable in block, and if you're spacing it right, you'll just be too far away for them to try and do anything anyways. So, you can just go for this, and if they block, it's neutral again. What can they do? Has no invul whatsoever at any point in the move, so if you just run straight into a move, you're going to get counter hit. But if you see some sort of gap in their pressure, you can occasionally like go for this if you think it's large enough, and you just cut straight through them, and you'll probably move yourself out of the corner if you were cornered, and you'll reset neutral. So it's really nice if you make a really good read. But like I said, no invul, so if you mess up, you've wasted 100 meter and you're getting counter hit. So fancy that. It also OTG relaunches, same options on hit as 623B, but that's assuming you're close enough to get anything afterwards. There's not really too much of a use for the OTG relaunch, to be honest. Flash Kick 22X, the A version. It's a strange move, I guess. It's very specific purposes. It's 7 frame startup, which is okay, I guess. It's not bad, but not great either. It's air unblockable, which is nice. It does have a bit of head involved during the startup, but it wears off too soon to actually have any real purpose, so it's not too great in anti-air, to be perfectly honest. If it anti-airs anything, it's more because it's kind of fast startup for the hitbox, rather than because it has head involved. It has EX cancel in the air, even on whiff. If it's blocked, you have just enough time to EX cancel on the ground. Not that there's much of a use for that, but it's a thing you can do, I guess. Yay. What it's really good for, though, is if you normal shield something, like if you're not confident in EX shield, you can cancel into this instead. And on counter hit, it gives you a soft knockdown, or you can EX cancel it into something, and that gives you a combo. Like, if you're close to the corner, you can do that and pick up with JA, or you can just EX dive or something. You get a really simple combo if you want to do that. Or you can just take the soft knockdown and tech chase with them. It's like a very specific move. It's about all I can say about it. 22B. This is your only meterless reversal option, so it's worth noting just for that. It's 9 frame startup. And as you can see, it will always whiff crouching opponents, no matter what. It will almost always whiff low profile opponents, no matter what. So it's very, very easy to bait without taking like any loss in initiative whatsoever. So it kind of sucks if you want to use it as like a wake up reversal or something. If you have meter, you should always use a meter reversal if you want to do that. However, it has full invul throughout the entire startup, and it is also air unblockable. So it is your most reliable anti-air, like, easily. If you aren't confident in 4C and the angle isn't right for 5A or something, just go for this. It will just plow right through whatever attack they're doing. It doesn't give you much of any reward, since it's 2 hits, counter hits don't do anything for you, and they just air attack. But it's better that you have the option to go through their air approach like that than nothing at all, so you take what you can get. The hitbox is worse than it looks. The active frames are worse than they look. So don't be surprised if the blue trail that her foot leaves just goes straight through them for whatever reason, because you don't time it perfectly or something. It's good for what it's good for, again. 2-2C though, this move is pretty good, actually. Full invul for the entire startup, really reliable invul. 3 frame startup, which is crazy. It's air unblockable too. It's a decently reliable hitbox for that purpose as well. If they're like jumping, it will usually catch them. Since it is inputted using 2-2, the input cannot be crossed up. Like some people will like try and jump over your head during your reversal window to make you like do the wrong special or something and counter hit. You can't do that against this move. However, the downfall to this move is that it does not hit above her at all and it moves her forward, so if they're right above her head, then you just can't hit them with it. You have to use like high row or something instead. It has the same problem as 2-2B in that you cannot get knocked down after it. Like, you just take your 2.5k-ish damage and your neutral reset and you have to run with it. Overall, it's your most reliable reversal option for making it connect, period, but it gives you the least reward of any of them. She has a series of special key throws using backdash and half circle back and attack. It's a really strange move. Again, a lot of her moves are just kind of strange. It's a common theme. A version should be treated like 2-1-4A, except pretty much better in every way, if you can get it. The 2 sets of keys have a much better hitbox on them. They are just generally more effective, doing a lot more damage than 2-1-4A. They have a lot more frame advantage than 2-1-4A. Like, no matter what distance you backdash away from them at, it will always be fairly plus on block, and if you actually use it at a reasonable distance from them, then you will have a ton of frame advantage, which is really nice, if you can actually make them block. You get most of a jump off before they can even start moving. It's a lot of frame advantage to work with. If you use this from beyond the effective range of 5C, like around here, you can combo into high row fairly consistently and get a knockdown. It has the same blind spot as 2-1-4A series, so if they like read it and jump over it, there's not much you can do about it, but it recovers fairly fast, so it's not too bad if that happens from a distance. Like, of course, the problem is, though, if you backdash a lot to create space, they're just going to start, like, taking into the air on reaction to your backdash, so if they're learning properly, it's kind of a situational move, just because they're usually going to be in the air by the time you do this. However, the B version gives you this nice anti-air key throw, which is nice. It's a bit slow in startup, and since she has to throw the second set of keys, that's quite a bit of recovery if the second set doesn't hit. However, the second set will pretty much, I think it actually just always hits them no matter what if they're on the ground, yeah. Surprisingly good hitbox on that if they just stay on the ground for whatever reason. They can also just like shield the anti-air keys, I guess, and it keeps their forward momentum, but unless they EX shield it, their options afterwards, after like they're trying to land, are limited at least. And that requires like a decent amount of foresight and timing in order to be able to do that, so if they're jumping at you, like, or just super double jumping at you every time you try and backdash, like, fairly consistently, it's an option to think about sometimes. It would be nice if you could use this move without backdashing first, but you take what you can get again. If you use it from decent distance, it has okay frame advantage, I guess. You don't really want to use it specifically for that purpose when you have the A version instead. But I guess if you're like reading them coming at you from the air and they just decide not to, it covers you. The C version, you would think it would be useful, but startup and recovery are just too slow. You don't really get too much if they block or get hit by it. You have to be like close to max range to get frame advantage, and I think you have to be at the same range to even be able to high row after it. So there's not too much you have to gain by using it. Even though the angle that the keys go at makes it look super good, you actually don't see this used very much just because the frame data is bad. Overall, the A and B versions of this move are useful zoning tools since you want to be backdashing in zoning matchups to make space in the first place, but just use them carefully. Jumping specials. 236A. It's like a fast fall. It has some landing recovery and the speed leaves some to be desired, but I guess because you can like EX cancel on the like flash kick or something, you can sometimes force respect for it, but otherwise you usually have better things you can be doing in the air. Like, you see it more commonly used for like throw setups, where you're very low to the ground and they don't have much time to react to the fact that you're doing a dive. It's completely identical to this move that I showed you a bit earlier. That's all there is to say about it. Like, if you use it after her air throw to end a combo, you will never be at frame advantage. There's no reason to do that, really. Like, at least for the purposes of trying to meet them afterwards. Like, I'll discuss other things you can do with it after air throw later, but it's not a super useful move, to be honest. The D version, this is actually somewhat useful. It's fast, you can like combo JC into it consistently, even on standing hit. It doesn't gain a hitbox until it lands, but it actually catches people a decent height out of their jump. Like unlike this move that I showed you earlier, which is interesting. It does extremely high damage if you can do it, so like if you do a jump into JC and you're really sure it will hit, it can cancel into dive instead of what you would normally do, and you'll get more damage. You have no cancel options whatsoever if it is blocked, but if it hits, you can cancel into anything. If it is blocked, it's only -1, and it's decent pushback, so you can like 5B after it, and they have to be really fast for you to be able to, for them to be able to beat anything you do after it. So if they have like slow frame data, you can actually like continue pressure after this is blocked, which is crazy. Like against like maybe Nero or someone. EX dive, J236C. Use this to pick up a combo after a counter hit T2A. And not much else. Bad damage, 236B does all the things you would need this move to do. It has bad frame disadvantage, and your combo options after it are limited and very prorated. It's just a bad move, to be honest. J214A. This move is very interesting. It's different from the other moves and its function. You retain your air momentum as you use it, so if you're falling, you just keep falling as she throws it. It's not good for zoning, because the angle is a bit shallow, and the key doesn't have a very good hitbox at all. It is about as good as it looks, which isn't very good. And the commitment when you throw it is completely huge. You're in counter hit state from the entire time after you throw it until you finish the fairly mean landing recovery, and the only way you can defend yourself is a fairly useless EX cancel. Like, all you can really do is, like, try and air flash kick, which isn't a very good option at all if it's your only one. So you don't use this in, like, neutral to zone much at all, but in pressure is where it shines. You can do something like that, and it baits smashing, it baits anti-airs. All they can really do to try and disrespect it is jump. It's the only reliable option. If it counter hits, or even if it just normal hits, you get a full combo off of it, and if they are in the corner. Like, it's best in the corner, because on block it pushes them back, but it does not do this if they're in the corner, like most projectiles in the game. Like I was just saying, on normal hit or on counter hit, you get a full combo either way, which is really good. And if they just respect it and block, you get varying amounts of frame advantage depending on where in your jump you use it. Like, if you do it at just the apex of your jump forward, you can immediately 5A as soon as you finish landing recovery, and it's airtight. It's a lot of frame advantage to work with, especially since it's so easy to make them respect it. J214B, this move unfortunately isn't nearly as useful. It stops her air momentum, unlike the A version, but all you can really do to force respect as she is landing is use the next hit of the Rekka. It's a Rekka series that only has V follow-ups, and all they do is just make it do more damage and launch them for them to air tech. That's about it. Like, you can't EX cancel it as you're falling or anything, and it launches you very high into the air. It has landing recovery. You're just extremely vulnerable if they don't get hit by it, or if they just block it, or anything really. It's not hard to block. There's not really any situation where you would want to use this for the most part. There's no EX cancel. Even if they get hit by it, the reward is really mediocre. It doesn't knock them down. It just does a bit of damage. Just don't use this move much, if at all. Like, the further Rekkas aren't really worth talking about. They don't do anything really useful besides doing more damage. J214C, unfortunately, is similarly limited in usage. It doesn't knock down. There's better EX moves to use that do more damage in the same situations you can combo into it from. It has no invul, unlike the grounded version. It's slow. It pushes you very high into the air and very far back from the opponent, so you're at a mediocre position after it is blocked or hits. Not a very good move, really. Like, air flash kick is a better combo ender than in every way. Don't have much to say about it, to be honest. Like I said before, it's, when you have as many moves as this character does, some of them have to be duds, right? 623A. Unfortunately, it's just like the grounded version of 623A. It's just use the B version instead. The B version has all the releases that you would want to use this for. It just does everything it does, but better. J623B, however, this move is actually somewhat useful. It is more rewarding on hit or block. It has more frame advantage if they block it, and it's just generally more damaging and more effective if they get hit by it. Like, the A version launches, and I'm pretty sure it's just downright impossible to get any sort of follow-up after it, which is really useless. But the B version just keeps them on the ground, and you can EX cancel it for a follow-up. It's just much more user-friendly. Like I said before, the frame advantage is greater than the A version, and it leaves you at frame advantage on the last hit on block if they are stand blocking it, or just blocking it on the ground in general, I mean. Which is really good, but it does usually leave you either just barely inside 5A range or just barely outside of it, so your options are a little limited, but it's usually a decent option, at least. The C version is really good, though. Like, like, it moves you much further closer towards the opponent. You're, like, always within 5A range, usually, sometimes even within 2A range. It has more frame advantage. It does a ton of damage on hit. It wall slams on hit, so you can very easily pick up corner combos if it does hit. And it just adds a ton of damage to all of your corner combos if you're willing to spend 100 meter for it. It's all in all a very useful move. Air flash kicks, too bad. This move, again, sucks. Just use the B version. There's nothing really useful about this that the other versions don't have. Air 2-2B. Unlike the grounded version, no invol whatsoever, unfortunately. You can't really do anything if it whiffs or if it is blocked. Like, you're just stuck in this state until you finish landing recovery, which sucks. It's really just a combo tool. Like, you can air throw afterwards or double jump afterwards if it does hit. You can also EX cancel it if you're very fast on the cancel, and that gives you a bit more damage as a combo ender, I guess. 2-2C. It's your only air flash kick with invulnerability. It's your only air move period with any kind of invulnerability, which I guess is sometimes useful if you really desperately need to defend yourself while you're still in midair. It has 2 frame startup because why not? It's your most damaging air combo ender, but it does not knock down. Like, if you just really need to kill somebody at the end of the air combo, and you aren't sure air throw will do it, just go for this. It's its main purpose, for sure. Arc Drive. It's faster than it looks. It has hyper armor until the very end of the recovery. Like, you can be counter hit, like, for a very brief window at the very end, but for the most part, you just plow through everything. Which I guess is kind of funny, but you have better metered reversals to go for that are cheaper and more reliable, so as a reversal, it's not great. It is air unblockable, but so is your flash kick, so why bother? It's really just a corner, it's really just a combo ender, like, corner or mid-screen. Solid damage, knocks down. Pushes them really far away mid-screen, but in the corner gives you a really solid knockdown, I guess. Does good damage while also giving you Oki. That's about it. Like, if you're about to, like, run out of max or heat or something, you might as well combo into it. Just why not? Really just used as a combo tool. Blood Heat version is the same, but it just does more damage. That's about it. It does a ton of damage if it does connect, so yeah. It also gives you Oki even if you use it, like, with your back to the corner. You do not have to be close to the corner to get Oki, like with the normal version, which I guess is good, but you usually just end up closing the round out with it anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. I guess if it does happen, oh well, that's good, I guess. Your last arc, it's kinda shit. It requires air EX shield, which is already fairly damning to begin with for last arcs in this game. You usually want them to be ground shields, just because ground shield is a fairly reliable anti-air. Like, not to say air EX shield isn't useless, but it's just more situational than the ground one, for sure. It's the same as J214C, except it does, like, a ton of damage. It's blockable, unlike most last arcs, which is dumb, but it does a lot of chip damage if you connect with it in the corner. Like, the damage depends on how much meter Seal has left when she uses it. The damage range isn't great. Like, it does good damage if you use it while you still have a lot of blood heat left, but if you don't have much left, just why even bother? Just does really sad damage, and for the amount of effort you have to go through just to activate it, even for Last Dark standards, just why? Like, it's already blockable on the ground. It already has enough problems as it is, even without stuff like that. Like I think I mentioned before, it does have good chip damage if they block it, but it's the Last Dark. It should be unblockable, so what's the point? You won't see this move much, if at all, like ever, I guess. There's better things to spend your meter on. Like, for real. Let's talk about Ciel's neutral game now. Like I said before, she is a show-to-wish character, so therefore her neutral game is best used if you are able to switch between playing a runaway zoning game and doing an aggressive rushdown game as the situation calls for it, rather than just trying to specialize. You'll just be cutting yourself off if you do. Against slow, powerful characters that try and grind their way in, like Nania, Nero, Goma, whatever, you are especially able to make use of Ciel's rather crazy mobility and ability to run away using her backdash and such, or just dance over them using her really good air mobility and just run to the opposite side of the stage, because they can't really do much to stop you without a really good read or something. And you can just harass them with all the projectiles you want. Hyro whenever you think they're going to try and get mad and do something that's stupid. It's just, generally, these are your strongest matchups in terms of neutral, and probably your strongest matchups in general. She has a very good matchup against Nero, just because she can shut him down so well in neutral, because he can't really keep up with her at all. He can't really do summons if you're just throwing keys at him all day, and he can't do much of anything if you're ready to Hyro anything that he tries to do. Like I said, make use of her backdash. It generates space very quickly. You can use the backdash key throws, which are better than the 2-1-4 series. 2-1-4A is your go-to, I just want to throw a projectile move. It's the least committal one. You can combo off it anywhere using Hyro. It gives you a soft knockdown regardless if it counter hits. It's a pretty decent angle for making them jump or just block. It's an okay projectile. Charge version, I guess if you really want them to jump over it and go towards you, I guess. It's super obvious and it's the same speed and effectively the same while it's traveling. Just gives you a bit more block stun if they block it. Neutral isn't really what the move is for, I don't think. 2-1-4B, it gives you more options for forcing them to block and setting up different situations in zoning. But the flaw is that the frame data is worse than 2-1-4A, so against fast characters that can really take advantage of being able to hop over your keys on a read, Vicion, Vakiha, anyone fast like that. If you even just do this alone and they read and call this out, then you've given up initiative and they're right in your face and they're probably going to kill you, which is fun. If you're playing against an average speed or slower character, you can afford to use this more, just because it's not as bad if they do read it. And if you can, it's really good because the A follow-up to the first one, it's at a very good angle. A neutral jump is not enough to clear the height of that higher one. They have to double jump or they have to neutral super jump in order to get enough height to go over it. So they either have to commit to using a very slow jumping option, or they have to commit to wasting one of their precious air options that they could be using to avoid your anti-airs, which is very strong. Third hits aren't nearly as useful for the projectile rekkas. You just want to use the third B if you just hit them on the ground or something and want to knock down. Not much else use for it. the third A, if they do just sit there and block it, you can do the B follow-up after that, and you can just do whatever you want if that is blocked. But if they're like smart and used to the matchup, they'll probably try and shield or like avoid the third A somehow, and it kind of defeats the move if they do. So you have to use it sparingly. It does hit at a nice angle, but the startup is just too much for it to be really super useful, unfortunately. Since you're going to be backdashing a lot, backdash keys, like, they'll eventually catch on if you just like do this a bunch, and they'll just start taking to the air in reaction to your backdashes, since you're just unable to do anything to stop them from doing anything since you're backdashing, and your backdash is longer than most characters. So a lot of people I've seen will just start jumping as soon as they see the backdash instead of just like waiting for like keys or some sort of other action. And that's why the B backdash keys is useful. You can just smack them out of the air and put them back on the ground, and it halts their approach for another moment, so you can regroup. Or just like start throwing more keys as they're on the ground, I guess. C backdash keys, like I said in the special move section, it's not that great. The angle is amazing, but nothing else about it is. You usually just want to use the B version if you want an anti-air key. Air A key, like I already said, it's not super great for controlling space. Like, you actually like never, I would say, want to use it from a good height. Like a good enough height for it to actually control a decent amount of space before hitting the ground, just because the recovery is too awful, and there's nothing you can really do to defend yourself as you're falling and letting the landing recovery play. And so you just want to use it from neutral jumps where it doesn't control much space. You can maybe use it during a back jump like that, just because it makes it a bit harder for them to run past it and hit you, but fast characters certainly can just go straight past it and hit you if they just feel like running in right then. And if it just whiffs, like they're in front of it or something, then you haven't really accomplished much, so it's not a great option for zoning. You can defend yourself during the fall using air flash kick, but it's a really dumb option to have to spend 100 meter on for just so little reward. Air 214B, you can only force respect after doing either of the first two by using the next one. You have no other options to defend yourself as you fall, just like 214A, except using the next series. And you get such little reward if it does connect that why would you even bother? 5cc. This is an interesting key to use in neutral. The startup is slower than all the other ones, I guess, unless you count the backdash ones, with the backdash as part of it, I guess. But you should be using backdash for other things than just backdash keys in the first place, so. Anyways, 5cc. If you use it from a medium distance, you might consider just doing nothing during the special cancel window and waiting to see if they try and go over it, so you can like flash kick on reaction and beat an air approach, because if you like autopilot another key, then their air approach will always win. If you're at a farther distance, you can pretty safely throw another key, and you can do something like this and get Hyro after it. And you have a pretty good amount of time to react to that, and it does pretty decent damage, and it hands you the initiative. It's like over 3k just for throwing one projectile. That's silly. I guess you could go into flip after 5cc, but flip in general isn't very strong. You could maybe do like that to control more space. That would probably be the only option I'd recommend using flip, though. Against characters that already want to be away from you, Ciel can definitely play a rushdown game, even though it's like not her main purpose or anything. Your dash isn't super fast, but it's fast enough to get your job done and super low profile. Like, this will go under Ciel's 5C. Goes under a lot of projectiles too. Goes under a lot of come-in pokes. And if you just run up throw with it, then there's nothing they can really do to punish that. Like, throw is invulnerable after all. Your instant air dash covers a lot of ground very quickly, and it moves at a pretty nice angle too, for instant air dash purposes. Instant air dash JC, it's a good option. Like, if they try and do things that will beat dashing forward, instant air dash JC will actually beat a lot of those options. So you actually need to sort of mix up with it. It's really crazy. If you see them do anything even remotely committal and you're looking for it, you can just Tyro. If they do anything with a super flash, you can, just, without even having to look for it, you can just react in Hyro. If you see them do something slow, like Nero summoning a deer, you can probably react in Hyro without even looking for that either. If they heat and your timing is on point, you can react in Hyro. I'm trying to say Hyro is a very, very powerful neutral tool that you should use a lot whenever you have the meter. They should always be scared of you using this move and work their neutral game around being less unsafe, which is an innate advantage that you get just from having Hyro and not even using it, which is really, really powerful. 5C, it's your best poke. It's high priority. If you want a safer move to run up and use, and you think they're just going to avoid, like run up jab or something like that, you can just use 5C early. And 5CC will catch their backdash if they try and backdash it or something, which is neat, I guess. 4C covers a lot of space in front of you. It's kind of like a shield right in front of you. The only way to like deal with it is to just wait for it to recover and punish that, or just be completely behind you, which is no reason that you should be using it when they are. So if you use this right, again, it's very powerful. They have to go pretty well out of their way to avoid this. Though it might seem useful to use dives to get like unique approach angles during the air, like the recovery is just kind of bad and they don't move at like quite enough speed or at the right trajectory for it to really be super useful. Like, if this B-dive whips, they're probably going to hit you unless they're very far away, in which case, why did you use it? And A-dive is kind of slow, and you could just use JC instead and lock them down or something. If you, like, need to, like, run away, you can get a ton of height and use that, like, B-dive, and that just gets you from one side of the stage to the other, and that's situationally useful. Like, same with air DPs, you can use like J623B, and that like lets you hang in the air some more. Like, if they're really certain that you're going to fall into some attack, you can just use this and get out of the way of whatever their offense may be. Like, assuming it pulls you out of range for anything that I might do afterwards, I guess. It's, again, situational. Okay, pressure. I guess the most obvious starting point is using Ciel's very quick, long dash to just run in and jab. Just force them to block something, and something fast. Like, from here you usually just want to just go into 2B and start, like, full pressure strings or something, but of course, since the frame advantage is pretty good, and your walk speed is pretty good, you can just choose to just go straight to stagger pressure. If you're really certain they're going to block or something, you can just like tick throw instead of starting pressure. It will probably catch them off guard, since your throw game is really good. 2B moves Seal a lot closer to the opponent, and just is more attacks for them to block, so inherently useful. Frame disadvantage is just too bad for you to have any reason to want to recover, so you always cancel it into something. If you aren't certain that it's going to double hit connect, you just look for the one hit that does connect and you just immediately cancel into something like that, and you will never have that problem if you do that, even if that does mean like giving up some push towards the opponent or some damage. If it does hit, it's worth it, trust me. 5B, very long delay cancel window. Not too bad on block. It's frame disadvantage, but not by much, especially with the delay cancel window on it, so you can do some really wonky pressure stuff with it. 5B, 5B, 5B run and jab, 5B like walk in jab, 5B dash throw, whatever. Just whatever you think they will respect. Like, it's not one of her best options, but you should use it sometimes anyway, just to mix things up. 3B. It's one of the staples of her pressure game. If they respect it on block, you are very close. You can walk up throw, which is very hard to react to if they're just content to sit there and block all day. Or you can just immediately 2A. Depending on the range, you might have to use 5A sometimes, like there. But that works. It just depends on your string. Probably just want to stick with 5A for the most part. Your ways to like reset your Gatling table are somewhat limited as this character, so that's very valuable. It also has a very long delay cancel window that you can use to force the opponent to respect the somewhat mediocre frame advantage, similar to 5B. 5C generates frame advantage if you rebeat it, but it pushes them out kind of far. Farther than you would like, at least. You like have to dash 2A or something to like re-pressure them in any ways. There's nothing stopping him from just jumping out from that. So it's kind of mediocre compared to like more purebred pressure characters' abilities to rebeat pressure. But what can you expect from a character like this, I guess? You can delay the cancel into 5cc somewhat, and that will frame trap, and not a lot of people will be expecting it because you usually use 5c like at the very end of pressure before you try and like re-pressure somehow. So like having one more like fast move to do after it is kind of tricky. And you get pretty good reward if 5cc connects even if it's alone, so something to consider. 2c. It's a low, it's a fast low. It's your best normal for rebeating, for like repressure. It's all I can really say about it. It's not worth letting it recover. It's awful recover. Follow-up has no use in pressure. What you can do with it though that you can't with just 5c is that you can like 2c rebeat, cancel the rebeat into 5c and frame trap. Because a lot of people will just start looking for the rebeat sign that appears in the corner, and react to that and like jab or something and beat you, and this will beat that. And because you have 5cc, you get a full combo if you do that. It's really nice. Besides just running back in and like doing 2A, you can also, if you like time it really well and do the instant air dash as slow as you possibly can, you can get JC fairly quickly. And that's a way to reset pressure that goes over the common tactics that people use to try and beat your dash, just because your dash is really low profile. So they have to like go low, and you go over the low with this, so yeah, you mix up. Not like a foolproof thing, but it's something they have to be aware of, so it's inherently useful. Air dash is fast and it goes at a good angle, so you can like reliably reset pressure with this from a distance. Of course, if JC's hitbox cooperates, that is, as you can see. The pressure options open up quite a bit in the corner. They're fairly simple, and there's not much to it besides what I already mentioned mid-screen, but in the corner she gets some very interesting options to play with, because a lot of her best pressure options are projectiles, which do not push back if the opponent is cornered. 5cc. It's very plus on block, no matter where you use it from in pressure, if they're in the corner. And it does not push you away from them at all. So you can easily do something like that. You can do something, you can just do that for frame advantage on block, and if they try and immediately disrespect without even reacting to anything, you just 5C them out of that, and there's nothing they can do about it. Or you can just easily just run in and 2A or something, and it's hard to disrespect that compared to like other options you have. It's more frame advantage than rebeating, and you're closer, so they have to like really be on point to like disrespect you out of that. It's kind of crazy option you get in the corner. The frame advantage is not to be underestimated. Definitely one of the main reasons you want to keep them in the corner, for sure. In the corner, instead of just like air dashing or dashing forward, you can jump forward, and then at the apex of your jump, you 2-1-4A. And when you use this after rebeat pressure string, it will just bait their mash. It will bait attempts to anti-air this strategy for the most part. They have to do something that's huge and really fast and really early if they want to actually counter-hit you out of that. Their only really good option for dealing with it is to jump, because jumping will just go over it. And it's a bit hard for them to punish you if they do that, and you do it at the range that you'll probably be doing it at, which is like somewhere around here. Like, there's a bit of distance, and they have to like recover from the jump. Like, they're just too high for them to probably be able to do much before the landing recovery is over. They might be able to start pressure on you if you don't like act really fast or something, maybe, but you shouldn't get punished. If they just sit there and block, you are super plus. You can do whatever you want. If you do it right, then 5A should be airtight. The actual frame advantage you get depends on when in the jump you throw the key. You get a total ton of frame advantage if you throw it as low to the ground as possible. You could like walk in 5B or something and it's like airtight. If you do it as soon as you jump, you won't have much frame advantage, so there's no reason to ever do that. Like, always wait until you at least hit the apex of your jump before you even consider it. There's no reason to do it any earlier. Charge 2 and 4A. Although it is air blockable and easily backdashable, and those are the reasons why I would recommend against using it for pressure mid-screen, even though it's very, very plus on block. Like, it's huge. You can do it like whatever you want. If you do it at the right spacing in the corner, cancelled after like 5cc, then it will catch their jump strip, so jumping is not an option. Neither is mashing. So all they can really do is like backdash or do certain reversals, and otherwise you just get to reset pressure really easily. So it's an option you can use sometimes. Okay, combos. Not going to be anything like combo video worthy or anything, just standard stuff that you will use all the time in matchups. Make it about as easy to do each combo as you can without like sacrificing a ton of damage or anything. Consistency is the most key thing. The BNB you'll be going for looks something like this. It's a lot of damage for just running up and doing a jab to a standing opponent. It's one of her strengths for sure, just high damage off everything. It's really good. Some advice for that combo is, if you're unsure of the range, only do one hit of 2B, otherwise you might screw up the combo and get punished. If you end up too far out even after that, then you can't do 2C afterwards against an opponent that you hit standing. So you have to go straight to 5C and do a slightly different combo. If they are crouching, then the same combo should always work on them, even against most characters. Ryogi is an example of a character that will give you a lot of problems with like standing infirms, and you probably just want to use the like longer distance ones that I'll show you. So if you're slightly too far out for 2C, you would do something like this. .5C, JB, JC, air dash JA during this first jump, and then you do the double jump into the rest of the air combo into the air throw. It's just a slight modification there to make it more consistent with the distance. If you're at like super max range of 5cc, or you're fighting against an opponent with a really dumb hitbox, you won't even be able to get 5c after it. Like, Seal was pretty good about it, so it's a bit hard to show it on here. Maybe from here, yeah. If that happens, you just have to like super jump towards them in JC, and then double jump and pick up the rest of the air combo from there. You have to be careful though, because you cannot immediately super jump after throwing the charge key. It's not something you can do. I just tried it there and got normal jump. You have to delay a little bit. It's really strange. If you're not certain super jump JC will hit, you can try using JB, though that usually isn't much of a factor very often. Usually if JC isn't going to work out, JB isn't going to help much either, unfortunately. If you want a little more damage, like you're about to kill somebody with a combo, you can end the combo differently. With EX flash kick instead of air throw, and it does a couple hundred more damage. It's not a whole lot for spending 100 meter, but it's your only option that late in the combo to improve your damage, and it works off of any combo really, so it's important nonetheless. If you are in max, you can obviously end combos early with arc drive. It's good damage, and if you are in the corner, it knocks down. If you have Blood Heat active, it does really good damage, and it knocks down anywhere. Oki is you do 2C, then you do like a slightly charged 5C. It's not super strict, but it really helps with consistency against some characters if you do, so I highly recommend learning to do that. If you want Okizeme though, because most of these combos haven't been giving much, like Air Throw Ender, lets you like meaty 5C and nothing else, and that's assuming you get them all the way to the corner before you do it. If you don't, you just don't get much of anything. If you want Oki though, you have to like cut the combo rather short, unfortunately. That's a bit more than half the damage you would normally get, which is kind of sad. It's important though because, especially in the corner, her Oki off of that setup is really crazy. So you want to go for that. If not in mid-screen, then definitely in the corner. You can also do a different setup that gives you different options. Using 4B in the follow-up. That gives you a whole different set of Oki options that are also very useful. And it does somewhat more damage, if that matters to you. You also have to do the half-charge 5C thing, but it's also not very strict in this case either. So it's not too much of a problem. If you're willing to spend meter though, you can spend 100 to get a pretty solid knockdown and do decent damage. Using Hyro at the end, after launching them as high as you possibly can. You do 2C, 5C, 4C as fast as you can after the charge 2 and 4A, but you want to fit in as much of a delay as possible between 4C and 236C, because that lets them get a little higher before you start hitting them. Just make sure not to let them air tech or anything, but just a small delay. You get pretty decent options even mid-screen off of that, so you see that sometimes. There's certain situations where you have to use this sort of awkward air confirm to go after them, like if you with 623B or 623C, you get this sort of launch you can't do much after. If you want a meterless combo after this, you have to jump up and instantly JA. And it's actually rather precise, and the combo afterwards is awkward. Just do the shortest combo you can that ends with air throw is my recommendation if that gives you trouble. It's situational where you'll get into situations where like that happens. Most common is like 5A 4C to catch a jump, but it's worth noting, I guess. It's a unique combo. Off of almost any projectile, unless you like use one from really close, you can just Hyro, and that gives you damage and knockdown. In most of the situations where you can Hyro, if you are close enough, then you can also do 623C. But the timing is kind of wonky. This would probably be a better projectile to use it with. And you have to use the really weird jump up confirm that I was mentioning in order to get a combo off that, but if you do the full combo, it does slightly more damage. I personally prefer the Hyro for the knockdown, and because it's much easier, but I've seen people use both interchangeably, so if you get an air counter hit, then you would either like walk up 5A or run up 5A if you're like not confident you have enough time to do something meaningful, like if you were like far away and you got a really soft confirm, or if you like did JA and you just like weren't sure you had enough time, then you would like 5A or 5B, because those are both very fast and hit airborne opponents. But if you hit them with something meaty like counter hit JC, then you would just like walk up 5C, and that does more damage, a lot more damage. several hundred more damage just for not much extra effort. So go for it. In the corner alone, you have a unique combo using J623C. Only works in the corner or very near the corner because it wall slams, but if you are close enough, it's a valuable option. During the BNB, you'd do something like that. You do that combo, adds like maybe 800-ish damage to your combo, fairly simply. Like, getting the air combo afterwards is kind of tricky. It depends on if they are standing or crouching, since 5C launches them. But I find that using JC, JB for the first part of the air combo makes it more consistent. And since it's in the middle of the combo and rebeat's worn off before the combo's over, it doesn't affect your damage much. It's kind of tricky doing the input though, and like I said, the air combo afterwards is kind of finicky, especially if it's a correct shit. Probably want to super double jump instead of a normal double jump. It usually leaves you at the right height for the correct follow-up. Let's talk about Ciel's Okizeme. Mid-screen, it's kind of limited somewhat. Lots of players just choose to go for the air combo instead and take their extra damage in corner push, but there's a few things you can do that are kind of tricky. That's a double overhead that a lot of people were not expecting. It's because Ciel's air backdash is so very short, you can still connect JC after that and then pick up the combo using B dive after that, and that is a double overhead. Or you can JB and land 2A for high then low, or you can just land low if they're like going to try and stand shield the JB or something, which is common when you do like a falling normal on Okizeme. It's a decent option if you don't mind losing the damage. You can also that is a cross up. And that is same side. The timing after you start the back jump before you air dash is what changes what side you end up on. It's pretty simple mix up, but it works sometimes, and I've seen a couple players try and go for this, so I thought it would be worth noting. Have to like really practice the timing of the air dash if you want it to be effective though. You can also end combos like this. If you super jump forward after the 4V follow-up, you will just land right in their face, and you can JC, and that is a safe jump against most things. There's a unique Oki option you can do after that is blocked that I will explain in its own section. Since it's a safe jump, once they respect the JC that baits reversals, you can start doing stuff like land throw or something if they're just going to sit there and block high or something. If you want to spend 100 meter, you can do the high row ender mid-screen. If you do 2C, 5C, 4C, delay 2, 3, 6C, that gives you just enough frame advantage to dash, immediately neutral jump, then air back dash and JC, and that's the same side high. That looks really strange. Or you can just keep going with the jump, land 2A low, and it's rather hard to react to. The frame advantage is just enough for this to work though, is the problem, and against some specific characters that wake up quickly, or if you just kind of botch the height requirement of the combo, then it can be hard to have enough frame advantage to not get disrespected like hell if you do that, so be careful. And another thing I've seen like 1 or 2 players use is that if you use the dive kick early enough in the super jump, the dive kick will actually meaty them same side, and if you do it late enough, the dive kick will whiff. You will end up right behind them and do 2A cross up. It can be disrespected though, so just be careful with it. Ciel's Okizeme options open up somewhat while the opponent is cornered. The most useful of these new options that she gets is that her air throw allows her to actually have like useful Okizeme options afterwards upon landing, as opposed to if you use it mid-screen where you can't really do much of anything because they're way too far away. One thing she can do with that is this. Meaty 5cc. It's fast, so it catches them out of jump startup. It counter hits them if they try and mash on anything. And since it's 5cc in the corner, you have a bit of initiative even if it's blocked, just because of the frame advantage. It's not a terrible option. You can instead do dash 5A 4C. This requires a little bit more respect on the opponent's part, but if you can get it, what it allows you to do is, if it's blocked, you can just reverse beat and continue pressure. If they try and jump up back on their wake up, then you just catch them out of the air and get an anti-air combo. And this is more advanced, but if they try and reversal heat activation, then if you time the 4C just right, you can actually clash with their heat activation. That depends on your knowledge of the specific character's heat activation time, so it's more advanced, but if you can sit down and learn it, then it's really powerful if you can do it. Right as you land, you can do J623B, cancel that into J623C, and you spend 100 meter to get a full combo if the meaty hits them, or if they just block it, then you'll be at a really good position because you have quite a chunk of frame advantage and you're close enough to either 5B or 5A depending on a number of circumstances, which is a pretty decent position for what it does. You also get new options off of the 2C, 2A Okizeme that you can use mid-screen. Charge 214A pulls the opponent slightly out of the corner, no matter what. So when you knock them down, there's the space that you can fit into using super jump. You can super jump land 2A for a cross up low, or you can do this. At the last second, you can air back dash JC, and that's the same side overhead. And that's already a fairly strong mix-up that's hard to deal with, but there's a couple other things you can do. You can double jump, air back dash JC as you fall, and that's slightly slower than the other two options, but it's yet a third different direction that they are forced to look out and block in on this mix-up, so if they're just going to try and sit there and respect your mix-up, you can give them a really hard time. And if they're just going to sit there and try and high shield, you can land 2C instead and get a counter hit. Off of throw, Ciel normally ends up a slight distance away from the opponent like this, mid-screen, but if she throws them into the corner, she is right next to them. So you can 2CC after her throw. And if they block it, you get interesting options. you can cancel 2CC into JC and then double jump and immediately air dash and JC as you fall, and this is a double overhead. Or you can do the same thing, except after the first JC, you just land 5B, and that's your low option. It's an okay-ish mix-up, I suppose. It's really the best sort of thing you can hope for off of a throw. Like, you usually just get a meaty off a throw, so you can use that sometimes. Ciel's Fuzzy Guard. It's a unique Okizeme option. It allows you to get this pretty much unreactable high-low 50-50. The idea is that you use JC as low to the ground as possible during the safe jump setup, and as soon as you land from the JC, you neutral jump JC, then B dive, and the JC, the second JC, will actually connect with them, even if they are crouch blocking. Because they must always guard high-low correctly, but it takes time for their character to enter their crouching animation. They must block high-low with their standing hurt box instead of their crouching one, so they cannot go under it. For the mix-up, they must be ready to high block the second JC and also block land 2A, which is basically unreactable, so this is a very powerful mix-up. It is very precise to do. There's a very precise window in which you must land and do the second JC, and it doesn't work at all if you time the first JC wrong. On top of that, it only works on about 2/3 of the cast, which you're seeing here. A lot of characters are just simply too short to be hit by a neutral jump JC, even in their stand guard animation. You can also do this if you like reset pressure with JC like that, but it's usually seen as an Okizeme option. It's very powerful if you can learn to do it, but it's very difficult at the same time. Defensive options. 5A. It can hit IADs sometimes, but it usually will not work in your favor if you try and anti-air with it. It's more useful after EX shielding something. Or it will probably just snipe their recovery instead or something. Or the 4C. Like I've said many times by now, it's impressive anti-air hitbox, but it's a bit slow to come out and recover. However, if they're like trying to air approach and you do have time to use this, like you use it maybe a bit preemptively, it's just this wall preventing them from like getting near you by pretty much any means. They have to bait it by using their other air movement somehow, and since they have to like waste air options or do something similar like that, just the fact that they feel compelled to use unusual or more air options just to get near you in the air under any circumstance is inherently useful. 2TB, it's your most reliable anti-air. Full and vol, solid enough hitbox to work fairly fast. Like, if they're like right on top of you and they're going to do something and you know they're not going to like land in time for the 9-frame move to hit, then this should pretty much always work. It's bad reward no matter what, but just having an option is better than not having it. Like, if they do like land and recover, or it just misses because the hitbox isn't as good as it looks, then, well, goodbye. 2-2A, it's good if you want to shield and you aren't confident in EX shielding. Like, this will just probably hit the recovery and either reset neutral, or if it counter hits, it gives you a soft knockdown. Backdash. Your backdash is good, I would say, but not for usual defensive purposes. It has a very long animation and only average invulnerability, so there is a longer period of recovery than usual where people can just hit you. Like, super active long-range moves will just hit you even if you backdash them. Like, you'll backdash through them, then just get hit by them anyway. It's rather disappointing. It's therefore just not a super great option to like mash out of pressure or Oki with or something. 2A, it's a pretty good mash option if they're close. 4 frames, which is really good for a C-Moon character. Better range than a lot of F-Moon jabs do. If you need a bit more range, then 5B has much more range, and it's only a couple frames slower. And if it trades, it can still knock them down since it trips crouchers, so that's something. 2C has even longer range than that, in exchange for being slightly slower too, and it always knocks down if it trades, no matter what. But I'd say 2C is the most situational of these, and there is no substitute for good blocking and timing reversals correctly. Speaking of reversals, you have a lot of options in that regard. 2C, it's your most reliable reversal. It's incredibly fast, really good in vol, air unblockable. Gives you the least reward though, but if you're just really uncertain if it will actually like plow through something, or if you just really want the reversal to work by any means, then this is the one you'd want to go for. Or if they're like in the air or something, then even if they like recover from their move or something, or they try and bait a reversal, you can just catch them with this because it's invulnerable and they're unblockable sometimes. Hyro, G36C. It's slightly slower, but it hits everywhere on screen, and it's much more rewarding than Flash Kick. It's air blockable. Like, if they aren't committed to something, they will always block it or shield it. It's worth noting though, because it does give you actual Oki, and is the only reversal option you have that does. 214C. This is probably the main reversal you want to use out of the opponent's pressure. Like, backdash is fully invul, and there's invul until she starts throwing the first key. But if they do certain moves, they can trade with the first key, which pretty much defeats the point at best, and outright gets them a combo against you at worst. So you have to be careful with this. Usually use it when you know they're committing to something bigger. Using this when you are like near the corner and you have them cornered is a bad idea. Using this while you were cornered is a situational idea. It's because the pushback that the keys give and the backward movement that Ciel has from the backdash are both very important for making it safe. 623C, it's not really a reversal, but it is incredibly fast, and it's safe on block at most range that you would sanely be using it from. You have to be really certain of a certain gap, like if they're a decent distance away from you from whatever pressure string they did, and you're like certain they're going to like try and dash in or something, or just otherwise do something that's slow and won't like catch you out of the startup of this move. But if you can do all of that for whatever reason, then you can like sometimes use this to just like slip straight out the corner, and there's not much they can do if that happens. 4B. It's a really interesting but kind of gimmicky defensive option that I just figured I would include because just completion. Has foot involved, so like some lows will just go straight through her foot for whatever reason. Like, the foot invol is strict enough that like this 2C right here can sometimes hit her anyways, so I wouldn't count on it too much. Like, C Nania 2A is going to hit you, probably. And there is also Clash on the leg that she raises, so if they try and do an air approach, she can react to the Clash and go and get a counter hit and a full combo after that. However, the Clash is not generous at all. If they do a median enough air approach or they just delay their air attack, then they will just counter hit you, and they are the ones that do 5 billion damage and kill you 4 times. So I wouldn't recommend using this much, if at all. It's usually better options you can do, and even if you do anti-air with this or just get a counter hit on the ground somehow, then getting the actual counter hit is kind of iffy. Sometimes they just won't get counter hit and you don't really get anything if that happens, so I can't really say I use this move much. Maybe experiment with it some on your own, but there's probably better things you can do in most defensive situations, is the big problem. Key points to take away are that Ciel is a character about neutral dominance who uses her solid pokes and variety of projectiles to zone the opponent out, and uses her good mobility to press an offensive charge if she needs to. She becomes stronger with a stockpile of meter and stocks meter quite quickly. Her offensive game becomes noticeably more effective if the opponent is cornered, and you should aim to keep the opponent cornered at all costs. Hyro is a powerful neutral tool that you should go for often enough that they always keep it in mind when judging their next actions in neutral, but not often enough for them to think baiting it is a strong option. Use, but use it with discretion. Meter opens up a variety of defensive tools for you to use during the opponent's offense. Each option has a specific time that it is best used, and used carefully, each is powerful in its own way. There are unfortunately few notably strong Crescent Ciel players in Japan or otherwise, and unfortunately few Ciel players in general, but a solid Crescent Ciel who makes use of the things discussed in this video is Saba.